So that's very, very interesting angle, Padmaja, that, you know, the UPA in the year 2012 had this entire apparatus ready, but they did not perhaps have the political will to carry out this test. Then why are they really seeking the credit today when the NDA government had the political will to carry out this test and to bring India into that elite space club which only has countries like United States of America, Russia and China?
Absolutely. In fact, there is a very distinct difference which has been pointed out by Mr. Chavan, if you just heard him, Hina, and he says that we were ready, but at that time, and I believe Mr. Saraswat is live with us now.
Mr. Saraswat, former DRDO chief, joining us on the broadcast. Padmaja continues to be with us as well. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on Times Now. We are now hearing from Mr. Prithviraj Chavan, sir, of the Congress party, trying to suggest that, you know, the UPA government back then in 2012 did not really feel the need to carry out the test that was conducted. What is your first reaction to this, sir?
I think when 2012, if you recall my statements, I said after the launch of Agni, we are in a position to demonstrate the capability of intercepting a satellite. We were not given the necessary clearance at that point in time by the then government because I think they thought that it is not necessary, maybe. We did not get any response for that. We had only suggested that give us 1.5 years to 2 years time and we will be in a position to do the kind of demonstration which has been done now by the DRDO today. So that is the real situation. The situation is that the then government was not forthcoming with any strong vision and decision as far as this test is concerned.
But sir, you know, Prithviraj Chavan, who in fact was the minister in charge at that time, he has just told us that once you signaled that the DRDO was ready, there was no need, the government didn't feel the need for a demonstration, for test firing. Would you agree with that assessment? Is there any need for a demonstration when we know that you are capable?
See, every experiment in science and technology has two parts. One part is simulation, which was done and carried out in 2012, and based on that I had made that statement that we have the capability. I had also made the statement that this capability would require development of 1 or 2 critical technologies to be developed, namely an infrared seeker and a kill vehicle. These 2 technologies would be needed for us to achieve the full capability. So we had sought for clearance that we should develop these technologies, and second phase in any such experiment is the demonstration. The proof of the pudding is always in eating. So demonstration of a particular capability always exists. Merely saying that simulation gives me this kind of an experience, I think it is not the completeness of the technology realization. I personally would like to reinforce this point, and that's why when the nuclear explosion was done, it was not that the scientists did not know that we have the capability, but we still have to do the nuclear explosion to prove our simulation and concept.
So sir, similarly, if I could just paraphrase you, sorry to interrupt you, but if I can just paraphrase you, if I'm understanding you correctly, you are saying that till the time we do a test firing, essentially this is more a project than an actual entity. Just to say we have the capability really doesn't amount to much. Is that correct?
Yeah, capability is always based upon theoretical simulations and exercises, and also what is the technology readiness level as perceived at that point in time. This is how the technology is computed. But integrating all the elements of technology, converting them into hardware and software integration, and then demonstrating it is the final proof of the pudding, and that should be done in any experiment, which is essential.
Okay, Mr. Saraswat, I also want to talk to you a little bit about the politics that we are really seeing on this entire matter, because instead of the country and our politicians focusing on the achievement of India by demonstrating India's ability in the space arena, we are seeing politics. Do you think perhaps the DRDO chief should have made the announcement instead of the Prime Minister, as the opposition is saying that by doing this, Prime Minister and the BJP is trying to take the credit because this is the election season?
I don't think this is an absurd kind of assumption by people with ulterior motives. As far as I am concerned, if at all anybody should get the credit for this particular success, it is the Honorable Prime Minister of this country who took the decision, who knew the ramifications, international ramifications of such a decision, that DRDO should go ahead with this kind of development and launch. Hence the credit should go to him, and none other than the Prime Minister should have announced this particular achievement. The synchronization of this with the political activity which is going on in the country is not in the hands of the Prime Minister, it is in the hands of the scientists who have particularly done this job. And I am telling you, as far as DRDO is concerned, it is a mission mode organization. It carries out its activities in the mission mode, where the timelines are defined, iterations are defined, the number of times the experiments have to be done, they are defined, and only on an appropriate time the final launch takes place. I have done it for the last 30 years and I have never waited for a particular date to be given by the Prime Minister or anybody. Whenever we are ready, we just inform the Prime Minister and said, look, we are ready, we are going for a launch. So it is not that the Prime Minister has asked us to do it only when the elections are on or anything. It is purely a mission mode process which dictates the timing. So anybody who is talking about Prime Minister making a statement because of political reasons is certainly with ulterior motives and only belittling the achievements of our country.
Okay, that's exactly what my point is as well, Mr. Saraswat, because people are just focusing on the way announcement has been made. Nobody is looking at the kind of achievement this is for India. India has joined the elite club, the kind of space Shakti it has got. For the benefit of our viewers, sir, can you explain to us what does it really mean for India? Because there are only 3 countries who have managed to do what India has done now.
See, as far as our country is concerned, today it has got control over the 4th dimension of the warfare. You know, there are 3 dimensions which existed earlier. Number 1 was land, then came air, then came underwater. And slowly now, the 4th dimension called the space is figuring it. The space-based assets are already participating in the conventional warfare by way of navigation, communication, surveillance and things like that, and even cyber operations. So there is a possibility that some nation may get so much worked up and so become so much negative that they can deny these space objects of our country also. Now how do you respond to such a situation? The only response to such a situation is by having a capability to harm the other satellite if our satellites are put into any difficulty. And that capability country has acquired today. It is going to act as a great deterrence, and no nation will dare to do any mess up with the assets, the space assets of our country.
This is very interesting what you're telling us, Mr. Saraswat. So perhaps this means that now India has demonstrated, not just to the people of this country, but it's a message across to the world, to the neighbors as well, that we have got this ability in the space that our one neighbor definitely has, which is China, but the other do not really have it. And this is something that speaks volumes of our space capability.
Yes, it is technologically very advanced, and also it gives us a lot of strength, and this strength actually gives us better bargaining power when it comes down to discussions on the diplomatic platforms on various issues related to geopolitical situation and the strategic matters related to the global world.
So because China also has this kind of a capability, and you tell us that, you know, with this India gets an upper hand, or rather better bargaining power as far as diplomatic issues are concerned, perhaps this could be, you know, something that India really needs when we know how the relations are clearly between India and Pakistan ever since Pulwama has happened.
I think in this context, I would like to mention that this capability is not against any particular nation. It is not against nation. This is not nation specific. I would like to remind you of what Dr. Kalam used to say, that technology is a strength and strength respects strength. In the global arena, if you are strong technologically, you are respected by all, both in terms of your power to negotiate on various issues as well as on your power whenever a conflict occurs. People will think twice before they mess up with our assets.
That's significant. And also, sir, I want to ask you one more thing. I want to take you back to the year 2012 during the UPA era. Would things have been different today as far as India's position is concerned if perhaps this demonstration had happened when you had proposed it back then in 2012, sir? Are we a little late?
I think if we had done it in maybe the clearance at that time had come, we would have launched it probably in 2014 or so, or maybe even early 2015. And that would have given us an edge as far as our negotiations in various other courses, maybe many other matters on which the Prime Minister Modi has been talking to various countries today. I think it would have helped the nation as a whole.
Okay. I just also want to point out, Mr. Saraswat, and want to have your comments as well. What is really going on in your mind today? Because it's a very, very important day for India. India has joined the elite club of countries like US, Russia and China as far as our space Shakti is concerned. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, sir, has tweeted just now, full credit to our scientists who succeeded in making in India a part of an elite group of countries who have ASAT missile capability. He also says, undaunted by the shameful mockery of a select few, they continue to serve Ma Bharti. What is your message, sir, to the politicians who are trying to, belittle this entire achievement and the kind of success it is really for India, and what really it means for a country like India?
As far as I am concerned, I am really excited today because I was part of it some time back. So it gives me a great pleasure that the thoughts and ideas and the technology building blocks which were developed at that point in time have come to fruition and realization, and we have really achieved this capability.
Right.
And the most important thing is that those who are trying to give a political color to this particular activity, I consider that they are being very mean as far as the achievement is concerned.
Okay, I'm just interrupting you there. Our editor-in-chief Rahul Shiv
It is important
Shankar
for anybody today.
Yes. Yes, sir. I'm just interrupting you there. Our editor-in-chief Rahul Shiv Shankar is also joining us on the broadcast. Rahul, over to you.
No, I think one needs to really salute the professor here for his candor. I think in setting the record straight at a time when obviously a great breakthrough is being colored and tainted by politics is not an easy job. And therefore, sir, thank you very much for speaking to Times Now, for setting the record straight. And I just hope that political parties who are today trying to, at some level or the other, taint this great achievement are actually doing a disservice to the cause. So thank you, sir. Thank you for speaking to Times Now. Hina, I just want us to pay attention to what the professor told us. He was, of course, the person in charge when the DRDO developed this capacity. He told us very clearly that there are two parts to any scientific experimentation. The first part is the simulation, and the second part, which is important, is also testing, and that certain technologies needed to be tested, and the UPA did not give a go-ahead. Now, this adds a completely new dimension to this entire story. As the Mission Shakti row explodes, the question now that we must ask is, why did the UPA, Hina, stall stall the development of Mission Shakti, the ability to knock down enemy satellites that might spy or might try to, pose a massive security threat to this country. What were the priorities of the UPA? Why did it ignore such a technological advancement which should have been tested, so that today our enemies were forewarned that you cannot mess around with India anymore?
Yes.
Remember, at that same time, in fact 4 years before that, China had begun to test this and had actually conducted an ASAT kind of test in space and knocked out a satellite. So we were competing, at a time when China had begun to muscle flex, and we know the kind of threat that China posed even at the time when the UPA was there in power. They had come across our borders, the poorly defined LAC, and they had also staged certain aggressive maneuvers. We know that they had trespassed, they had staged a Doklam-like situation. We know all of that. At that time, when the need of the hour was to forewarn China that, look, don't mess with us, we have the technology to actually undermine you, you had a situation where the UPA did not give a go-ahead. Now, I just want to bring back the professor for 30 seconds. Professor Saab, I want to ask you, why do you believe, Professor Saab, the UPA might have found itself constrained? Professor, why do you think the UPA did not give you this clearance? Because you have made it very clear, and I admire your candor here. You made it very clear that as a scientist, your job is to continue to work on technologies, and when they come to a fruition, you ask the government for a clearance and you go ahead and you test it. This has nothing to do with any one regime or another regime. So why do you think the UPA was a little wary of giving you the free hand to test your technology, sir?
I think the main, I can only put it this way, that when you carry out such a test, what we have done today, it requires analysis of its ramifications globally. And probably at that point in time, the agencies concerned did not have probably the clear vision of what will be the ramifications. So they were in some kind of a fear psychosis, and that probably resulted in not giving us the kind of clearance which was needed. This is my perception. I won't say this was the real situation, but this is my perception. Other than that, I don't see any reason why the clearance could not have been given at that point in time.
So your perception of fear psychosis, can you explain that? What would you mean by fear psychosis? Because it's a very interesting remark that you have made here. Fear psychosis of what? The implications, the ramifications are clear. And I remember, sir, that China had conducted a similar experiment at least 4 years before your statement had come out. I think in 2007, 2008, they had knocked out some sort of satellite in space. So it was important to obviously prove to the world that we had this capability and that we were capable of, matching our adversaries.
Yeah, I think probably the whole purpose at that point in time, because China did it in 2007 and 8, and I won't say that in 2007 and 8 I could have made that statement, because by that time we had not launched Agni 5,
yes,
and also we had launched and intercepted a ballistic missile at the exo-atmospheric conditions. In 2012, both these achievements were there at my command. That gave me the confidence of making that statement after doing the required simulation. And this was communicated to the then people, including the National Security Advisor, including the minister concerned and all. But the response was not very candid or clear. There was nothing. Okay, you have done a good job, you have done a good launch of Agni, be happy, go ahead, continue, and that kind of a thing. But for us to do a development of this nature requires a mission clearance, and that has been given by the today's Prime Minister, Dr. Shri Modi, a mission clearance for DRDO to go ahead with developing the missing building blocks and demonstrating this launch. At that point in time, I think that kind of a courage did not exist.
That type of courage did not exist. Very, very interesting. Professor Saraswat, let me ask you my final question and I'll let you go, and I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. I wanted to ask you very, very importantly, you said that a clearance was given to the DRDO by this government. Do you know, sir, I know that you're not perhaps part of the setup anymore, but when this clearance was given, can you tell me that?
I don't know the dates, so
Right.
I won't be able to make a guess. But this kind of a development, which has been done for making a very agile kinetic kill vehicle with an infrared seeker and doing a software for completely automated launch, ensuring that you don't even err by fraction of a millisecond, all this would take at least 1.5 years to 2 years time, and that has resulted in this kind of probably clearance that would have come maybe 2 years back, and that ensured it happened now.
Well, Professor Saraswat, thank you so much for speaking to Times Now. Very, very important words from Professor Saraswat, because if he believes that the timeline for the clearance was about 1.5 years or perhaps even 2 years, that really debunks the opposition charge that Narendra Modi has timed this to the elections. Professor Saraswat says that he has no exact idea of when the clearance would have been given to the DRDO, but to undertake such an endeavor, he said, quote unquote, undertake such an endeavor to be prepared to carry out certain exercises such as this and acquire a kinetic kill technology, it would at least require about 1.5 to 2 years. So the clearance would have come much before, viewers, in Professor Saraswat's estimation, before the general election. So we are talking then about a period of around 2017, which debunks the theory that this exercise has been timed to the elections. Now, it would have taken great planning for the Prime Minister, great foresight, to sit in 2017 and say, oh, on certain date, 11 days before or 15 days before the election, I'm going to make this announcement to win a few votes. So this is very important, viewers. The timing question being debunked. This one criticism that is being made against the NDA, that look, this has all been timed, this is stage managed, this is a theatrical performance, etc., to win votes, also debunked. We will, of course, expect the ISRO or the DRDO in this particular case to come out and perhaps clarify. We are going to try and put some questions to the DRDO as to when the clearance came. We will also put that question to the government very soon. But the timing, if it's being delinked from the poll process, then the opposition seriously needs to introspect, because this is a development. It is a new national security paradigm shift that it is uncharitably criticizing and tainting. And this is not the time really to score political points by criticizing the achievements of our scientists. And it will only play into hands of the BJP, which has already come out and said that first you question the ability and the courage of our military, and now you're questioning the ingenuity of our scientific community. This will definitely play into the hands of the NDA if the opposition continues down this path, because it is only a losing proposition.